That day, he forced me to go out with him. I couldn't refuse. I'm the victim. When I saw the message sent by my cheating wife, I thought it was some kind of mistake, but no matter how many times I read it, it was clear that I was forced to go out with him. It was written with the nuance that I was not at fault. Huh. Don't be ridiculous. It's a lie that he forced me or couldn't refuse after a relationship that had lasted for over a year. Then what was the line exchange with Masao about? Let's go to the same hotel again. I'm glad my husband is insensitive. He invited me, laughed, trampled on my family, and now he says I'm the victim. My name is Takana Hiroshi. I'm 38 years old. I'm an ordinary office worker working for a major construction company. Work on site is tough, but when I get home, my cute daughter's smiles are waiting for me. I've made such small happiness my purpose in life. I married my wife Yuka at work. When I was still working on site and in the office as a site supervisor apprentice, it was Toko who came in as a new employee in the clerical type. At first, we didn't pay much attention to each other, but it started with a small misunderstanding about work. It's strange that this can't be written off as an expense. It's because you're the one who's late with the report. After a few such exchanges, I somehow started to pay attention to her. She was a bit rude, but she was sincere in her work and was considerate. One time, she brought me a gift when I stayed late at the office to put together some documents to submit. She left me a rice ball and tea from the convenience store, saying that if you collapse, my work will only increase, and then she went home. At that moment, something moved inside me. That was the beginning of my relationship with Yuka. After we started dating, we had a peaceful relationship and got married 2 years later. Eventually, our eldest daughter, Sa, was born, and 2 years after that, we had a daughter, May. Yuka took childcare leave and focused on childcare for a while. But when May started nursery school, Yuka returned to work full-time after working part-time. She was originally a serious type of person, and even after returning to work, she wasn't the type to neglect her family. However, around this spring, 8 years into our marriage, the strange feeling of being fat started to spread little by little. The first thing I noticed was a change in her clothes. She started wearing skirts and flashy accessories that were obviously floating even though she was going to work. Her makeup got heavier and her perfume smelled stronger. When I asked her if she was a little flashy today, she said she had to dress appropriately because she was meeting a client. She laughed and said that there may be times when she was like that. But the way she laughed that day sounded fake. And her smartphone. She never lets it go when she takes a bath, goes to the toilet, or even puts it next to her pillow. She never did that before. If your smartphone breaks, it's a hassle, so at least leave it in the kitchen. When I said that, she turned around and returned it to me. Why? It's fine. I was just trying to warn her, but when she overreacted, it made me feel suspicious. Of course I didn't want to doubt her. I wanted to believe her. But my daughter's words poured cold water on my desire to believe. One day, my eldest daughter Sa, who was in the first grade of elementary school, said quietly, "Mommy is always angry." The girl who goes to nursery school nodded and pouted. "Mommy, it's Kanoma. I was so scared when I picked her up." The moment I heard that, I felt a heavy weight in my heart. Children are sensitive to changes in their parents. I can't lie. The strange phenomenon that I pretended not to see had already affected the whole family. I gently asked Yuka, "You seem busy lately, but are you feeling okay?" "Of course not. I'm tired from work, so please let me." She says it's natural that she doesn't take her eyes off her smartphone and doesn't do housework. If you just listen to her words, it seems reasonable. But there was no warmth there. It was an emotionless response that just read the lines like a robot. From then on, our conversations decreased day by day. There was almost no talk at the dinner table. Only the sound of the TV and the voices of the children echoed in emptiness. One day, she just said, "I'll eat tonight. Please take care of the kids," and she didn't come home until late at night. She left with a full face of makeup and a gorgeous outfit, saying that she would be out on Saturday because she had company training. I didn't ask anything. No, to be precise, I couldn't ask. Because I felt that if I asked, something would break. My family, my children's smiles, and my own heart. But now that I think about it, maybe I just didn't want to realize that things were already falling apart. Then one night, while Toko was taking a bath, my smartphone on the table vibrated. The name Kitamura-san was on the display. I felt like I understood everything then. I still had no evidence. But I better trust this intuition. I couldn't help but feel that way. That day, it was a weekday night like any other. A simple message came from Toko online. "The meeting is going to be long today, so I'll be home late." It was short and curt. But that had happened several times before. If I worried about every single thing, there would be no fog, but that night, something stuck inside me and wouldn't go away. Why? I asked myself that question, and it occurred to me that it was my own experience. Meetings for administrative staff usually ended quickly after the evening meeting. It would be different if it was a really busy time or when a project was starting up, but it shouldn't be a semi-busy time right now. It doesn't seem like it would happen quickly to have a meeting drag on for 2 or 3 hours after regular working hours. Moreover, Yuka has been talking a lot about meetings and consultations lately. I have never asked her how many projects they are and who is involved. Normally, she would say something like, "I'm having a meeting with the whole department today and there was a bit of trouble," but Yuka always just says it's a meeting. The content and purpose are left vague, as if she is deliberately trying not to touch on it. All of that past accumulation overlapped with just 1 minute tonight and spread a hazy fog in my chest. Once I started to worry about it, I couldn't stop. I opened the screen and looked back at the line. I was worried about the curtness of the text. The floor, which used to be so polite, is now just a short message with only the requirements. No, it's not. I don't think I don't understand Yuka enough to notice such a small change, but maybe my stupidity in pretending not to notice was the main cause. I took a bath, put the kids to bed, and turned on the TV, but nothing was going through my mind. Before I knew it, I had picked up my smartphone and unconsciously opened the family shared location app. The smartphone icon on the floor appeared. The moment I saw the location, my spine shivered. The mark on the map was pointing to a love hotel in Takagi. I wanted to believe that it couldn't be that and that it was some kind of mistake. But no matter how many times I updated the location, it was definitely pointing to that place without even a few hundred meters of error. My chest felt heavy as if I had swallowed a stone. My heart sank quietly. I felt my emotions boiling up all at once, but at the same time, another calm me said, "Don't get the kids involved. Go alone for now." I immediately called my parents' house. "I'm sorry. I got an unexpected call from work, so could you take care of my daughters for now?" My parents kindly agreed. I felt sorry for my mother's voice telling me to be careful. I put them in the car and headed to my parents' house. I didn't say much, but my eldest daughter, Sa, had a puzzled look on her face in the passenger seat. "What's up, Dad?" "Yes, it's okay. I'm just going to work." I said that and lightly stroked her head. After leaving my daughters with her, I got in the car again. My destination was the place I had seen earlier. I stepped on the accelerator, relying on the map on my smartphone. The inside of the car was quiet. For some reason, the radio and music were harsh, so I turned them all off. The only thing that felt louder in the night was the sound of the tires hitting the asphalt. And then I arrived at the scene. The deserted Taka Love Hotel area. It was starting to rain. The rhythm of the wipers was making my nerves fishy in the night. I parked the car on the side of the road and turned off the engine. I parked the car in a place where I could see the entrance to the hotel, and just waited for the moment. After a few minutes, two people holding umbrellas appeared from the automatic doors of the building. There was no mistake. Behind them was the familiar suit-wearing Toko. And the moment I could clearly see the face of the man next to me, all the blood ran down my face. Kitamura Koji was Toko's boss, and I had only exchanged greetings with him once before at a company event. He was supposed to be married. I heard he had children. That Kitamura and Toko, who was supposed to be my wife, were walking together, holding hands and leaning against each other's shoulders, smiling. I felt like I heard something snap. My desire to believe. Maybe it was the sound of the last thread snapping. I slowly started the engine and drove in the direction the two were walking. Then the car stopped right in front of them. Toko stopped with a shocked look on his face. Kitamura also had a surprised look on his face and opened his eyes wide. I opened the passenger door without saying a word. I just stared at the floor without saying anything. She froze at his gaze. For a few seconds, there was silence as if time had stopped. Kitamura opened his mouth. "Hey, what's this?" I didn't listen to him at all. I just stared at Yuka in silence. "Yuka, get in the car." Yuka then grabbed her bag with trembling hands and got into the passenger seat of the car. The only sound of the door closing echoed loudly in the night. I slowly looked at Kitamura and spoke just one word. "We'll settle things formally later. Be prepared." With that, I stepped on the gas. Kitamura's face reflected in the rearview mirror was pale. It's really over. At the moment I thought that, it felt like everything was going away. The rain hadn't stopped yet. With Yuka in the passenger seat, I held the wheel in silence. There was no radio or music in the car. The only sounds were the sound of the wipers and the sound of the sun hitting the windshield. Yuka seemed to be trying to say something, but no words came out. She just clutched the bag on her lap tightly. When I got home, the clock had already passed 11 p.m. I was right to leave the kids at my parents' house. I wouldn't have to show my true colors as a married couple. I turned on the light in the hallway, and Toko timidly entered the house and put her feet into her usual slippers. She may have thought she was back to normal, but the door was already completely closed. I walked quietly, watching her back. "Give me your phone." Yuka stopped moving for a moment. Then she turned and looked at me. Her eyes were clearly frightened. For what?" "Not for what. Let me see it now." There were a few seconds of silence. Eventually, as if she had given up, she took out her smartphone from her bag and handed it to me. It was already unlocked. It was probably because Toko's hands were still shaking. I took the smartphone without a word and opened Line from the home screen. It was the opposite. The chat room that was fixed at the top. His name was Kitamura-san. He was my boss at work, he was married, and the man I'd left the hotel with tonight. I moved my finger and went back through our past conversations. "Tonight was fun. Let's go to the same hotel again. I'm glad my plain husband is so insensitive. You said you were going on a trip next time, didn't you? Then it's open on the weekend." This was the true nature of a work meeting. This was the reality of overtime. Uncontrollable emotions welled up from the bottom of my stomach, but I managed to hold myself together. Yelling here or expressing my feelings won't change anything. I put my smartphone on the table and said slowly, "Yuka, do you understand what this means?" She looked down, bit her lip, and didn't answer. "I'll save all the Line messages, photos, and emails from now on. I'll treat this as evidence. At that moment, the floor shifted. Go back to your parents' house from tomorrow. Don't meet the kids. Leave your house key behind. Well, wait. Let's talk through a lawyer. That's the outcome you chose. She looked at me with a tearful face, but even though there was regret in her eyes, there was no apology. That's what I saw. Yuka went to her room to get her luggage, and after a few minutes she and Minoru went back by taxi. The next day, Yuka's parents came to visit us. My father bowed deeply, and my mother-in-law, with tears in her eyes, repeatedly apologized, saying that she was truly sorry and that we had no idea about it. I said quietly in front of my parents-in-law, I appreciate the sentiment, but I want to hear the apology from Yuka herself. It doesn't matter if anyone else comes. My father-in-law nodded apologetically, understood, and bowed his head, saying that he would talk to her properly. I saw them off to the front door and closed the door. I could hear my mother-in-law's sobbing voice on the other side of the front door. Then, a few days later, I received a line message from the floor. It was that day, but Kitamura-san forced me to go. I couldn't refuse when I thought about my future work. I'm the victim. When I first saw the text, I thought it was some kind of mistake, but no matter how many times I read it, it was clear that I was forced to go. It was written with the nuance that I was not at fault. Ha, don't be ridiculous. She couldn't refuse after more than a year of relationship. Then what was the point of that line conversation? Let's go to the same hotel again. I'm glad my husband is insensitive. He invited me, laughed, trampled on my family, and now he's the victim. I took a deep breath, clutching my smartphone. The light had already turned cold. I took a breath and replied to the line. If you want to prove your innocence, report it. Whether it's power harassment or sexual harassment, try reporting it to your company. If you're the victim, you should be honest and tell your company. My message was read, but there was no reply. Yuka may not have thought that far. She probably just wanted to persuade her husband and live as she had before. But I had no intention of going back. No matter what excuses Toko made, no matter what face she apologized with, my trust was completely gone. I blocked her escape route. That was my way of drawing a line. In the end, report it. I replied to him online, telling him to report it to the company, so there was no reply from the floor. The message was read, but there was silence. But it didn't mean that nothing had been done. Later, I heard from Yoshishi that Yuka had really reported it to the company. It seems that Yuka had reported it to the company. That Kitamura had forced her into a relationship. Yoshishi's voice on the other end of the phone sounded like a mixture of frustration and confusion. I sighed and looked up at the living room, where the light was shining through the house. Is he trying to shift the victim now? Did he think he could get away with it if he wasn't found out? Was Harui trying to make everything go smoothly by using Kitamura as a shield? I didn't know at that point. A few weeks later, an internal investigation was started within the company. Kitamura's subordinates, colleagues in the same department, and staff who had traveled with him in the past were called in for interviews. Of course, me too. I had no use for knowing the details of the investigation until the results were released, but I could imagine the outcome just from the rumors circulating in the car. Apparently, the person who testified said that Yuka was the one who invited him. Apparently, she said that she had a secret relationship with Kitamura at the heart drinking party. That's right. I thought that even though she was bragging about her affair, it was all over. As a result of the investigation, Kitamura was charged with inappropriate relations with subordinates and violation of compliance, and was given a full punishment. However, unable to bear the rumors that spread in the car and the gazes of her subordinates, she was soon forced into a full-scale execution of her duties. After this, I heard from a lawyer that Kitamura was also cornered at home. His wife found out about his affair, threatened with divorce, and he ended up living apart from his children. It was decided that he would pay 3 million yen in alimony to me from his retirement benefits in addition to alimony and child support, and he would be forced to live a difficult life. From this perspective, he had no intention of revenge. He just did what he had to do. But even so, Kitamura collapsed. He lost everything: his family, his position, and his credibility. On the other hand, Yukawa also had to pay the price for the lies she set up. Her name was never made public as the accuser of the power harassment and sex harassment, but rumors quickly spread in the car about who had reported it. The woman who crushed the man, the woman who had an affair and now pretends to be the victim. Such voices began to be heard in the shadows. Her superiors distanced her, and her colleagues became cold towards her. Having lost her place in the workplace, Yuka was ordered to transfer a few weeks later. Her job was to a department that was mainly involved in menial tasks, which she had looked down on as a new employee. She wasn't exactly a window sitter, but she was treated close to that. Then, after a while, a strange presence began to slowly drift around the floor. At first, she received silent phone calls. Her smartphone would ring at times like 2 or 3 in the morning. When she answered, she couldn't hear anything. However, the phone continued to ring silently without any response to her voice. Next, someone started throwing hair with the name of the floor written in it into the mailbox. The name was crossed out in red pen and simply written as a betrayal. Furthermore, from what appears to be a secret account on SNS, several posts that could only be thought to refer to the person himself, such as a married woman setting up her boss at work, having an affair in a car, and socially eradicating the man, were discovered. Of course, we don't know who the poster is, but Toko was frightened. Kitamura-san must hate me. One day, I heard from Yuka's mother that he had been thinking like this. Toko tried to use Kitamura to paint over his crimes. But such shallow lies quickly peel off. And the price of what that lie took was heavier than I could have imagined. Now Toko is not trusted by anyone, not by her family or workplace. I heard that Toko, who was looking for a place to stay, wanted to see her children, but I have never met her. Her daughters don't want to see Toko. It's more like she's not interested than angry. Maybe her daughters have noticed too. What kind of person was their mother? How did she destroy their family? One day, by chance, her eldest daughter said this to the cover. Mom was weird, wasn't she? I had no answer to that question. It wasn't just the act of infidelity that destroyed the house. Lying, blaming others for his crimes, not apologizing to those he hurt. All of these things piled up and drove Toko into a place of solitude. This may be the end. But it's too early to decide that it's over. From now on, Toko will realize the weight of what she has lost more and more quietly. Thinking this, I sat down to breakfast with my daughters. Warm light was streaming in through the kitchen window. It was a month after that the divorce was officially finalized. We exchanged documents through a lawyer, and all the conditions were as we had set out. There was no division of assets. I was serious. Child support was 60,000 yen per month for 2 children. The alimony was 3 million yen. Toko didn't argue at all. Once she said that she really wanted to see her children and wanted to meet them, but I withheld my answer. I shouldn't make the decision based on my will alone. That's why I asked the children. Do you want to meet mommy? Thought for a moment and then said this. I don't mind seeing her, but I don't want her to make that scary face again. Those words hit me hard in the heart. But I clearly understood that it was reality. When I asked her about Mayu, she answered my question. I hate my mom. To be honest, I was speechless at those words. But somewhere, I understood. Maybe she was no longer a mother the day that Shiraba no Itodoko disappeared from our house. Life after that was hard. Work, housework, childcare. It's not easy to do everything by yourself. But I got used to it little by little. I get up early in the morning to make lunchboxes, hang out the laundry, and send the kids off with my hair. At night, we take a bath together, check their homework, read to them, and put them to bed. Sometimes we just didn't have enough time and we just had to eat cup ramen. But even on those days, Mayu smiles and says, "Kiana, ramen was really delicious." Saw grew up well. When I'm tired, she takes the lead in taking care of my eyebrows. That's how the three of us created a new family. One day like that. On the way back from going to the movies with the three of us on a weekend afternoon. As we passed through the square in front of the station, we saw a woman standing in front of us. Her hair was messy, her makeup was thin, and her face was a little watery. But I knew it at a glance. It was Toko. The moment she noticed us, her eyes opened wide. She tried to walk towards us. But the next moment, Saw stopped dead in her tracks and stared at the floor. Her eyes were cold and lived. Then she reached out to my arm. That was all it took for me to understand everything. Toko couldn't call out to her. She just stood there for a few seconds, unable to say anything, just watching our backs go by. On the way home, her eyebrows furrowed. The old lady from before was scary. Saw looked ahead without saying anything. Her back looked a little bigger than usual. When I got home and was cleaning up, my smartphone suddenly vibrated. The screen showed a call. It hung up after a few seconds. Oh, not again. The silent calls have been coming in a lot lately. I know that if I answer the phone, no one will speak, and the floor will just remain silent. But I have no intention of calling back. In the end, nothing remains of the things I tried to protect with lies. I think that the price of destroying my family with my own hands, my family, my trust, and my position as a mother is finally weighing heavily on me. And now we are about to take a new step. Every time I see my daughter's smiles, I think to myself, I never want to see those smiles again. Yuka can no longer be a mother. She has given up on being a mother herself. And now all she is looking at is the past that cannot be regained. Those who are bound by the past and stop, and those who walk towards the future. The difference between them will never be filled. And that is the result of the path we chose. This is the story of my family's rebirth. And it was the quiet end of the woman who died as a mother.